Lunch on Power 98.7, second hour of the show. The big question is how much money is too much? Now listen. Have you ever been punished at work for leveling up? Maybe you started changing your hair, you started dressing better, maybe you moved to a better neighborhood. How would people know what neighborhood you live in? Unless you tell, I don't know. Sorry, it just occurred to me as I'm reading it. How would they know? Like, are you telling them? Maybe that's the problem. Or maybe you come up to work in a new vehicle suddenly, right? Things change in your life, basically. And you have a lifestyle audit, yamahlo. And everybody looks at you and thinks about where this money is coming from. How are you jumping in the workplace? Envy, power, class, that invisible line between success and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable from a race point of view, from a culture point of view. So maybe you and your friend have always been in similar positions, but now something happens and the shift happens. Talk to us about navigating lifestyle policing. That's what we're calling it. In the workplace, lifestyle policing. On the line with us, we have HR executive at Lanseria International Airport, Boniwe Dunster, who joins us, and you can too. Boniwe, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Pabi. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you. So talk to me about cases where employees are treated differently after showing visible signs of financial progress.
Sure. That's a difficult one, Barbie, because honestly, it has nothing to do with the workplace environment. It has nothing to do with, fair labor practices. It's just habits, of jealousy, of being suspicious or wondering what does the other person do, to be able to afford a certain lifestyle. If you look at our labor legislation, whether it's the Basic Conditions of Employment or Labor Relations Act, nowhere does it really talk about, how people should be, affording certain things or not affording certain things because of their level. And, as a country that's also trying to maneuver, economic challenges, we are hoping that we have employers that are very interested in, changing people's lifestyle for the better, providing them equity to participate, economically and giving them the dignity that they deserve due to the work that they do, right? However, you find people saying, when did she afford it? How does she afford it? What did she do? Who is she in cahoots with? And it becomes actually worse in people that are working in, especially in money handling positions, right?
Yeah.
So it becomes like, what are they doing with the money, or how are they cooking the books? Especially if you find people that are working in procurement in certain instances, right? Because you're working in procurement, sometimes you have to be cautious, not because it's the law, but just, public perception. Because you're working in procurement for some reason, you need to be careful in terms of what you buy and what you do, right? I've heard of some people that say, I wanted to buy this particular car, but I couldn't because I'm in procurement and therefore I settled for this. Or, I wanted to actually take this trip, then I have to downgrade the trip. Or if I'm going on an international trip, I actually have to hide that because people will start believing that the reason I can afford such an international trip is because of some shady deals or brown envelopes because I'm in a certain position. But it's really, Babi, a matter of, of perception and jealousy more than anything else.
So that's very interesting because there is no law against perception and jealousy, as you said. It's not in a law book. It's not in how labor operates. It just is human nature to a large degree. So let's talk about then how we start dealing with it as humans, right? So I don't know if you want to talk from the top down or from those who are the colleagues feeling threatened by somebody else's success at work and what you should do about it if you are the successful one.
Sure. Again, Babi, maybe let's bring it back to the law. As much as I said there's no law against, jealousy and suspicion, our Labor Relation Act also talks about unfair labor practices, right? So meaning that people cannot be unfairly treated for any reason, none whatsoever. So it is important, when you are being approached either by your peers, either by your managers, wanting to question either your lifestyle or wanting to question certain things that you have achieved over time without them even understanding, what is it that you are doing, what your partner is doing, or probably you could be coming from a family that can afford to support you in terms of your lifestyle. So from an unfair labor practice, it's unfair for people to be questioning you and your finances because it's not their place to do so. And people cannot say, let's see what performance rating you got, therefore we can equate that to your to your performance bonus or your increases. People cannot be asking about your pay slips or your bank statements as well, just to try to satisfy themselves, because by so doing they are actually then infringing on your privacy, right? Or on your right to privacy. So this is something that we can actually term around gross violation of of privacy. And in that regard, if you feel uncomfortable, then you can even lodge a grievance against your manager or against your colleague to say, I have been aggrieved because I'm being treated like this, within the workspace, and therefore, I'm aggrieved and I need this to be attended to through an internal, formal process. But if it's your manager or your super senior, you can go to whoever that's more senior based on the internal processes. If not, then you can approach, any dispute resolution body that your industry really then falls under. There are instances whereby, organizations or boards of companies can also impose probably like lifestyle audits on certain people or on management, right? Based on the line of work that has been done. And even when it is done, it will be done within a particular framework with reasonable, accommodation, and to say we are doing this because this is what we are looking for. This is how we are guarding the assets of the company. This is how we are actually ensuring that the executive management of our organization, it's true and it's ethical in terms of their line of work, right? So that will be explained, but it cannot be a random thing whereby somebody can just single-handedly want to actually violate your privacy or want to belittle your successes or your economic progression purely because somebody has boxed you in a certain box to say because you are so and so and because you're at this particular level, therefore you cannot achieve anything beyond this place, beyond what I am, paying you. Because what it means it means that the very same people that are boxing you, they are actually also not paying you enough, as an employee. They themselves might be infringing, the Employment Equity Act and the Companies Act in terms of equal pay for equal work. So, somebody is also not realizing to say, you might be actually looking over this person and what they are doing, but also in hindsight, you are actually showing us the type of leader or the type of organization that we are working for in line of fair labor practices.
I'm having a laugh because when you say, they're not paying enough or they're not, following labor practices, I just have to laugh because I don't know in this economy, and this is a strange question for you, and I don't know if you'd like to take it on, because people are in a position where it's very difficult to find work. It's, I believe, a lot easier for those in charge, those paying the bills, to abuse their employees because they have nowhere else to go.
And also, it's also the lack of knowledge and not understanding how sometimes or decisions are made. Because of the tough economic environment that we are currently working in at the moment, and with the high unemployment that we are facing in the country, particularly the youth, people are also quick to take on whatever that comes their way because they're like, as long as I can get my foot in, then I'll be able to navigate better opportunities because now at least I have something. Because it's more difficult to get a job when you are not working as compared to when you are working. And that unfortunately pushes people to even, succumb or to take lower remuneration rates because they don't have options and they don't know how to navigate or how to actually negotiate, for better. And that is why we also say to people, even when you go to an interview, try to do your research. And sometimes it can be desktop research, which might not be 100% accurate, but it can shed some light in terms of what is happening, to say, but this particular job in the industry, it pays so much based on Careers 24, audit that was done, or, a benchmark exercise that was done, whether it was done by, REM channel, which is often done by Old Mutual, and so forth, just to actually bring a level of preparedness into your negotiation around your package, But if maybe you haven't worked before, and maybe you've been a graduate, you've been home for 3 years, then you don't have bargaining tools, then maybe you might take it because you have nothing to bargain with, right? But if you are somebody that has been participating in this, employment raise, then at least you have something to take to bargain with or to negotiate with. For example, some of the bargaining tools that you can use into that conversation to get a meaningful remuneration. It could be the fact that I'm a qualified engineer. This is how much I was earning previously prior to my retrenchment, right? So my worth in the market or in the economy, based on where we are, it's how much, it's X, right? Versus the Y that you want to give me. You want to give me the Y because I'm actually unemployed, but that doesn't actually equate to my worth, right? And it could be I have been retrenched, but this is what I've been doing in the past 2 years to remain relevant in terms of the engineering sector or the fraternity that I am in. So do not downplay what you have gathered in terms of the years of experience, the qualifications, the soft skills, and so forth, because those are the things that you need to use to have that conversation. Because if you don't bring them forth, a recruiter or a hiring manager might not voluntarily say, but this person is an engineer and they actually have a postgrad, and therefore, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You need to
You've
use
got to
that
speak for
information.
yourself.
You have to speak
Yeah.
for yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we were brought up to be very modest, right, around our worth, or we were taught to be very, especially from an African perspective, where you were taught to be grateful when you have an opportunity. But sometimes you mustn't be grateful to the detriment of your own, of your own worth, right? Rather, you negotiate the offer, and the employer comes back and say, unfortunately, I can only afford Y. But then you can make a decision to say, am I taking the Y or not? And maybe you might want to take the Y because you are unemployed. But when another opportunity comes, you need to be in a position of negotiating, for better. Or you can take the opportunity, but just say, because I have this, it gives me, a head start to also then, aggressively look for something that suits my financial needs or where I was before I was retrenched. So my point that I'm driving is that we mustn't be modest around our worth. We mustn't be complacent around the information that is shared around some of the employment practices that we find in our country.
So important always to mention Boniswa Dunster, our HR executive at Lanseria International Airport. And we're talking in the main about how you're watched everywhere you go, especially in the workspace. And you're watched with it could even be the watch that you are wearing. It could be an upgrade of a vehicle. It could be an upgrade of how you dress. And there are lots of eyes on you in terms of that. And so what does HR practice say? What does life in G say? How have you felt in that situation? And then, of course, what it is that you can do in terms of management or not. I've got a WhatsApp here, Bonue, and it says, do you know that in the literature of fraud prevention, I think this is do I know, because I think obviously you know, managers are taught to observe employees' lifestyle. And it actually says employees must be told that their lifestyle is observed.
I'm not aware of this as a line manager myself.
Really?
As a line manager myself, no. But what I've noticed, or what I have observed also in my past experiences, right, there has also been situations whereby you find remuneration decisions are made on people's lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So the decisions are so subjective, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to give Pabi like 2% extra because she has a new child, or probably her child is going to school, or so and so has bought a car,
Extra.
or so and so, but which should not really be the reasons why you are having a remuneration conversation. It should be objective based on somebody's performance objectives or KPIs, and to say this is what the company can afford based on different performance ratings. Obviously sometimes we know there's pay parities or meaningful differentiation whereby people that have performed better will get better increase percentages or bonus percentages, right? But we can't take people's lives and, bring them into the conversation and make decisions around those, because some other people might be in the same circumstances, but because they're not verbalizing their challenges or they're not verbalizing their personal needs, then you end up actually having to be, discriminatory in terms of your decisions, intentionally or unintentionally. So it's important not to, to do that. But like I said earlier, there's certain sectors, especially in money handling positions, especially your like finances, especially like your, procurement and supply chain, those are the positions or departments that can really, whereby people are observed because of their line of work, and therefore we need to monitor their lifestyle or their spending habits based on the large of transactions and monies and bribery that is involved in those kind of positions.
Sounds lovely. We've got a voice note that's come through. Let's have a listen.
Pabi, with our lifestyle policing, it's a real thing. I remember this boss of mine asked me once, how am I affording to stay in this neighborhood I was staying in at the time, while earning the salary that I was earning at the time, but it's a real thing. And as an employer now, you ask yourself, if I'm paying you 15K a month and you staying gone north and driving a car that is probably paying a good 12K, 15K a month, I should ask myself, how are you affording that? Especially if you have access to money in my company, or you're in a key position. It's something that you can't just look away and say, no, it doesn't matter. It does, and sometimes it's not even about what you do in my company, but what are you doing out there? And I'm not judging you, but it's a fair thing, to question.
I love that. What are you doing out there, brother man? Because if they find you and they find that you're connected to my business, then I may be brought into disrepute. He also announces about how, if you're working in a key position where you are very, very close to the money in the business, it raises eyebrows, Bonnie.
It does, Pabi, definitely, without a doubt. I've mentioned it before, but what I appreciate about what he said, he spoke about them having a lifestyle policy in their organization. So they have something to guide them in terms of how it is done, when it is done, and all those guidelines within a framework. That's number one. Then when you're doing it, it's not random, right? In certain instances, it's just random, but in this instance, it's not random. There's a policy that's guiding them. That's number one. Number two, there's always, we always have financial advisors, or people are going through financial literacy programs, which is something that a lot of financial services sectors are actually, advocating for, because they want South Africans to actually have better lifestyle, right? So it also gets to that point where it's not sometimes necessarily about how much you earn, but how you actually spend your money, your spending habits. There are people that are generally, that they are savers, Pabi. They calculate every rand and cent. They are never, impulsive, right? And they can actually even wait for 5 or 10 years before they can save enough money to either build a house of their dreams or be able to put down a deposit together with transfer costs for them to live in an ideal place that they want. So we must also not disregard people's, financial literacy or their financial habits that they actually have to be able to live a better life. Because at the end of the day, but as I said in the beginning, it is important that as employers, when we employ people, we don't employ people to be slaves, and we don't employ for cheap labor. But in us employing people, we're employing them to improve their lifestyle, to give them dignity, to give them equity, to be able to participate in this economic world that we're living in. So let us not always be say, because I'm paying you this, therefore I am boxing you to a particular township or a particular location that we can stay. We want improved, lives, so that in this economy that we're participating in, the companies that we have, they actually have the market, and the market is created by the people that we employ. The people that we employ are the customers that are buying the many services that we're actually selling out there in the economy. So I think we also need to be fair and balanced to say, why do I exist as a business, and why do I employ people, and why do I employ certain people, and what is it that I want to see in terms of, in terms of my employees. We also talk about the 17 sustainable goals, right? One of them is actually giving people fair and equitable jobs, and we can't really overlook that.
I mean, you hear so much of it being overlooked. So
It is overlooked,
yeah.
But we shouldn't. And I think we need to constantly remind ourselves, we shouldn't, Pabi. We want to take our people out of the slavery. We want to take people out of, the jobs that are not giving them the right dignity in terms of livelihood. We need to try. We need to try, because at the moment it sounds like everybody is comfortable hiring people, but people actually remaining at the bottom of the economic chain. It
Yes.
can't be the case.
And, what if your sister bought you a car? What if your
Definitely.
boyfriend bought you a car?
Definitely. Like I said, we
Anything
have
can
family
be.
members. Definitely. We have family members that can afford to support us. Some people are coming from families that are well off, where they can actually support, their people in terms of their lifestyles or economic participation. Some people have parents probably that have left them, trust funds and all of those things, but they are working a junior job. It doesn't mean they don't have money, but it means they want to wake up in the morning and have a purpose and have something to do, not because they don't have money. But we always assume that when people are working, when people are starting from the bottom, it's because they don't have anything, and that is not always the case.
I wonder if it also applies backwards. So you see your manager or whoever come in 6 different cars, like one for each day of the week, and you think you can't pay me more, but you have all of these cars. It works backwards as well, I suppose.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of these things, especially in municipalities. I just can't pinpoint my memory right now.
Okay.
There was an article of such an effect whereby a municipal manager was driving this expensive double cab of Mercedes-Benz, right? And they have different cars,
Yeah.
but people are never paid. Security companies whereby people go to work every month at municipal offices, come month end, people are not paid, but the municipality have actually paid the security, contractors, right? But people are then not paid because why? We want to maintain a certain lifestyle at the expense of the people that are helping us to get those jobs or to get those tenders.
Bonnie, hang on 1 second. We're finding out what's happening in the latest power headlines now. Nyaka Lotte for standing by. It's 1:30, and then we'll take some of your voice notes, and then we'll let you go, Bonnie.
Power Lunch with Pabi Moloi.
Weekdays 12 to 3 p.m.
Right, we're having a deep conversation about the world of work, and I know so many of us are in this situation where you're looked at because you dress differently, because perhaps somebody bought you a car or you were able to do something different, that you're looked at by management or whoever else. And the question is, how are you able to afford that on what I pay you, which already, I mean, that sounds very dodgy, right? How are you able to afford you on what I'm paying you, which goes to the point of what you're talking about modern slavery. But then, like 1 or 2 managers or owners of businesses have phoned in and gone, well, sometimes I look because I do know what I'm paying you. And then I wonder, if you're so close to the financial element of my business, I just wonder what's going on. And it can sometimes be a question. We've talked about it. If companies have policies that require you to disclose what it is, that your sources of income are, and that's the next big question I want to ask. Can the company require that you disclose your other sources of income?
Yes, definitely they can, Pabi. And actually, it's not only the organization that really requires that, but also it's the legislation that says if people have other, businesses or side hustles or any form of, economic income, they need to declare that with their employers, right? And that is also to make sure that you are not in conflict of what your organization is doing. So the purpose of you having to declare, it's not that they can deny you your side hustles, but it's just to ensure that the business that you have does not conflict with the work that you're doing. First of all, you're not doing that kind of business during work hours. You're not utilizing the business, resources to advance your business, and your business is also not in direct, conflict with your organization. For example, I could be working for an insurance company. Therefore, as a business, I cannot have a business that's a brokerage, right? Where I am selling policies, as well. So that's indirect conflict. So it is a legal requirement. It is legislated, and it is also, outlined in one of the case laws, like recently, that was last year, whereby an employee who was working for not like a meat company, I think an abattoir, and they were also selling meat products. So that was also direct.
They were doing what?
So the employee was working for an abattoir or a butcher, right?
Okay, abattoir. Yes, yeah.
Yes, and then also they were then selling meat products as well. And as much as the person was selling different types of meat products, that was not the same as their employer, but then they failed to declare their business, and it was not impacting on their job in terms of their performance as well. They were not conducting, but they actually failed to declare. Because remember, according to the Labor Relations Act and the basic conditions of employment, if you are an employee, your single economic income comes from your employer. Therefore, if you have anything over and above that, you have to declare so that your employer knows. It's not to defer you, or it's not to digress you, or to stop you from doing it, but it's just to ensure that it does not impact on your employer, and it does not impact on your performance. So the declaration is by legislation, and therefore it is important for employers to also have a conflict of interest policy and a way or a manner in which employees are able to then declare those businesses through the internal processes.
I just want to know what other meat they were selling. What can they say?
I don't know if it was dried meat or was it biltong or something, but I know they were both in meat, in a meat.
Yes,
type of
and
business,
it caused enough of an issue to go to court. So definitely make sure that that's done. Let's have a listen to this next voice note, Bonero.
Pabi, Mandla from Pretoria. Now I have a problem with this market-related salaries. I'm like, my man, I've been working here for so many years, maybe 20 years or odd. Market-related, what do you mean? If you say you want to hire me, put the price up. I'll accept or decline it. But market-related, I'm like, no, man, this doesn't make sense.
I'm not 100% sure what that question is about, but at the end of the day, market-related salary means what? Does it mean it's the entry level, or does it mean it also climbs up as your experience has climbed up in the market? What does it say? What is he saying?
So I think he's referring to the point earlier when we were talking about having to negotiate your salary. Because oftentimes employers will say we are paying a market-related salaries, or employees, when they are being asked, what are their salary expectations, they will then say market-related. So I think market-related is also subjective, in terms of the different industries and the types of jobs that we do. And hence I said it's important for people to be able to understand their worth in terms of what they are bringing into that new organization or role, from experience, from qualification, exposure in different industries. So what is it that actually, makes you suitable to actually then get that higher salary? But you need to negotiate it. You need to give them a number that you are willing to negotiate from, based on those facts. Because my market related and their market related could be different based on the, on the source of information or the source of benchmarking exercise that we are doing. And market related from somebody that's working from a multinational company to somebody that's working for an SME or that's working for an NGO, it will never be the same.
Yeah.
So try to understand from people who are within the same, sector or the role that you are in, to say, how much can one expect to be paid in this particular role if I'm being promoted, or if I'm getting this particular role, but in a mining sector versus in FMCG. So those are the questions that you need to ask, so that when you get into that conversation and an employer tells you about their market-related salary, but you can tell them this is what the industry is paying based on this benchmark, based on this data that is available, so that it can make your conversation more meaningful. So I think don't subject yourself to such terminologies without you yourself interrogating and bringing your research into the conversation.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It really is a tough one. And if you're able to, as you say so rightly, brief yourself correctly, equip yourself correctly, and hopefully in those conversations where you are either negotiating for higher salaries or you're trying to get a job in the first place, you'll be much better off. Boniwe, do you write? Where can we find some of the work that you do? I don't know if you pose in, Dubai on your Instagram. Maybe you want to tell us that as well.
You're so funny. You're so funny. But I'm actually available on most social media platforms that we have locally here in South Africa.
Yes, darling.
I don't know about Dubai. I once did a conference in Dubai, but that was about it. But yeah, all social media platforms locally, your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. That's where most of the time I would then post my my work on in terms of work related or human resources related issues and cases.
Brilliant. It's always so enlightening speaking to you. Boniwe Dunster, HR executive at Lanseria International Airport. Thanks for your time.